Your examples are golden.
Well, cool. So, welcome to another episode of Black Valley. We're picking up again on the OKRs, and the example I was using is at the beginning of the year. I I knew that I was um, overweight, right? So I was about 200 pounds, and I should be at about 176 pounds, right? And so, but I couldn't lose, 200 minus 176, that's roughly about 24 pounds that I was overweight. And I knew I couldn't lose 24 pounds, my objective, in a short period of time. So what I do is I create these KRs, the key results. And the key results are milestones. They're pieces of the objective broken down into smaller pieces. And usually we do it in a quarter, a 3 month time span. So if I actually take the 24 pounds that I need to lose, divide by 4, because there's 4 quarters in a year, then each quarter I should be losing about 6 pounds, right? So my key result, and again, key results are used to help monitor to see if you're on track. I know I'm on track for accomplishing my objective of getting down to 176 is if each quarter I lost 6 pounds, right? And that should be able to track and see, all right, did I lose 6 pounds this quarter? If so, I'm on track. If not, I need to make some adjustments to see how do I get on track, right? And then the next quarter, I go through and I say, all right, did I lose another 6 pounds? So if I lost 6 pounds the first quarter, then I should have been at about 194 pounds. If I lost another 6 pounds in the second quarter, right, then I should have been at 188 pounds. And if I met that, I'm on track to progress, then it's reasonable to forecast and predict that I will meet the objective. If not, if I'm not making the progress that I thought I should make, then likely I'm not going to meet the objective doing the same thing I'm doing. So I need to take some corrective action to get back on track if I hope to meet the objective. And so the analysis part of this is that I need to see, look at my goal, look at the measurement for it, so it's objective, and make a determination on whether or not I can take some corrective action to get myself back on track, or is this just totally unrealistic? If in the first quarter, if I only lost 1 pound, maybe my goal of losing 24 pounds for the year is just totally unreasonable. It's totally unrealistic, and I ought to lower my expectation, change my goals. And so, what OKRs help us do is it sets up this system by which you can actually track where you are, and you can realistically take a look at your strategy to see whether or not the approach that you're using to accomplish your goal is actually the right approach. If it's realistic, if I should be doing something else, because the current mode I'm in just isn't going to work. So that's kind of how OKRs work. How you feeling about this so far? Just make it real.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely doesn't. So, and then my mind just told me that in that quarter, we're going to run some sprints to make sure we get to where we want to be by the end of however many sprints we'll fit, a maximum of 3 in that time.
Correct. Yeah. It's decomposition. So I know I want to lose 6 pounds in the quarter, but then what I want to do is say, hey, you know what? There's 3 months in a quarter. That's basically 2 pounds per month, right? And then I say, hey, you know what? Per month, if I'm trying to lose 2 pounds, my sprint say that's 2 weeks, then that's 1 pound per sprint.
Okay.
So then I can keep breaking it down into smaller pieces and keep incrementally going piece by piece to make sure that I'm on track, right? And again, I'm explaining it this way, and I'm gonna use the weight loss example. Doesn't it just seem like super logical? Like, why doesn't everyone do this?
It's amazing how it all ties together. How we go from doing the certain type of analysis. I forgot you said it's two type of analysis.
Three. So decomposition is the first one, and that's what we're doing now, decomposing things. And then there's vertical analysis. Vertical analysis is actually saying, hey, if I do this piece down here, will it help me get to this greater vision, this greater accomplishment that I want at the higher level? If I do this key result, will it lead to my objective? And then horizontal analysis says, hey, well, if I do all this stuff, will I get my objective, or is there something else I need to do? Right.
So now, but before that, maybe I'm not using the right word, but right now you're showing me one form of, for lack of a better word, data analysis, but then there's a second form that you're going to show me later.
Correct.
And this form is the more proper.
Yeah. So this is the difference. This is called qualitative analysis. So it's not dealing with numbers per se.
Okay.
When people think about analysis, especially data analysis, they go for quantitative that deals with numbers.
Okay.
And again, this type of analysis that we're doing is actually more beneficial and more profitable to organizations than the quantitative one.
So it's amazing how we use OKRs and SMART to do a qualitative analysis, and then to make it happen, we use Agile Scrum. I see how it all fits together, man. This is so cool. It's like nerd heaven.
So here's the fun part, right? And I'm gonna stay with my weight analogy for
Mhm.
right now, because again, we left off in the last episode discussing horizontal analysis. And again, just to recap, horizontal analysis says I take the pieces and I actually question and say, if I do all these pieces, will it actually equal up to the overall objective? Right? Will the whole thing get accomplished? So again, I'm breaking out losing weight and losing 6 pounds per quarter. And I need to do some analysis to say, all right, if I lose 6 pounds per quarter, will that actually lead me to accomplish my goal of losing the 24 pounds for the whole year? Right? Or is there something else I need to do? And here's the part that is really tough with this type of analysis. Most people, when they lose weight, they gain it back within a year. And the reason that they gain it back, I'll use a really bad example of this, although I love her to death. But we've watched Oprah kind of yo-yo and go up and down in weight for her entire career, right? And the trick to it is that I can use pure willpower and just not eat for a certain period of time and lose weight. But if I haven't made the lifestyle changes, you know, changing my diet, um, really looking at, you know, making better choices, especially under stress, then I'll tend to gain that weight back. And so what I need to look at, because people can lose 6 pounds in a quarter, but if you gain 3 pounds back in a quarter and then lose another 3 pounds, right? Then you won't get the objective met. And so you have to brainstorm and think about what are some other things that you need to do to make sure the objective is met. And part of that is, we just talked about, it's not just losing, it's also not gaining it back. So I'm gonna need to throw in another key result that I don't gain anything back. And maybe another key result is, I know for me personally, because I went through this journey, and I'm about, and this is the funny part, I lost and went down to 176 pounds, but then I gained 3 pounds back. And so I know the struggle, and I'm constantly monitoring myself. And so what we have to do is think about, well, how do I add that other portion of not gaining it back and have a key result, a metric for that, so that I can stay on course and stay progressively reaching the objective. And for me, what I found out is I need to exercise. So on any given day, I'll go run for an hour.
Mm.
And so even if I do mess up on my diet, if I run for an hour, it'll actually cut all those calories out. It decreases my appetite. Um, and normally, it evens everything out, so I don't gain weight. I don't gain it back. And this sounds good, right? It's really great.
Yes.
But there's a catch, because I'm an old man. My body ain't like it used to be. So I found I was running every day, and everything was great until I get injured. Then when I get injured and I can't run, well, now I realize, oh wow, I didn't make the lifestyle changes necessary from a dietary perspective, lowering the calories. I'm just compensating with the exercise, so I'm burning it more calories. But as soon as I get injured and I stop burning the calories, the weight comes back. And that's how I gained the 3 pounds. Right. And so there's some unintended consequences. You really have to analyze and say, all right, so what else do I need to adjust? I can find some other exercise besides running. Unfortunately, no. I tried weightlifting, tried swimming, and I don't get the pleasure, the stick to itness, and the results that I get from running and these other exercises. Additionally, that when running, because I have a really busy, high impact life, and so when I run, it's like a stress reliever, and it also helps me to sleep better at night. When I do these other exercises, it doesn't help with the sleep as much as running does. And I found out if I don't sleep as well as I should, then I'm hungrier during the day. So I'll throw out the diet. My willpower is down, and I end up eating more. So there's all this analysis that needs to get done. And is a tool that we use to help with some of this analysis, and it's called a causal relationship diagram. And in the causal relationship diagram, what you look at is, what are some things that occur and what are the effects? So what drives the results that you're getting? And when you can actually examine those and see it and do that analysis, then you have a way better control over what you do and what the effects are. And again, these are big um these are big um contributors and things you want to do to analyze things from a qualitative perspective. what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually Googling some causal relationship diagrams, and I'm actually going to share it on the screen just so you can take a look at it.
Okay.
So we'll do a share on the screen. I'm going to make this a little bigger. And we'll just take a look at some. So in these causal relationship diagrams, what you can see here is we have something that happens here. It's the extent of the obesity problem right here on this side. And then what you see is an arrow. And in the arrow, it shows a plus by it, right? And the plus is by popularity of weight loss programs. And basically, what is showing the end of the arrow, the extent of the obesity problem.
I'm sorry, could you start over, Brian? I was taking a snapshot.
Oh, no worries, no worries. But what you see here on the left-hand side, it says extent of the obesity problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see an arrow that's leading towards the popularity of weight loss programs. And you see a plus by it. And that plus is actually signifying that the greater the extent of the obesity problem, the greater, so it causes an increase in the popularity of weight loss programs. And that makes sense, right?
Yes.
More people have obesity problems, you have more weight loss programs, right? So again, what you see is that the cause, the extent of the obesity problem, and the result, popularity of weight loss programs. This shows the relationships, right? If it's a plus, then that's an increasing or positive relationship. And again, it's positive from the perspective of the symptom or an event causes more of the result. If you see a negative sign by it, then that's a decrease. So you can see here that the more popular, the more you have weight loss programs, it actually decreases, because there's a minus sign here, it decreases the obesity problem. And which makes sense. The more programs I have that address obesity, if they're effective, you should have less obesity. Let's look at the bottom part here, right? You see an arrow going from popularity of weight loss programs, a negative sign, and it says efforts to address underlying drivers of obesity. And this is important. Basically, what you're seeing here is like, hey, the more weight loss programs that there are, the more we don't address the root causes of obesity. And again, we can see it in our neighborhoods. If you go to a grocery store, again, I'm in Silicon Valley. I go within within a mile of my house, there's two major places to buy food. So I can walk to these places. And when you come in, there's a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. Where I grew up in Cleveland, when I go back, there's hardly any grocery stores within walking distance of most neighborhoods. And there's hardly any fresh fruits and vegetables. It's all the processed food that you buy. Here in Silicon Valley, the fruits and vegetables are relatively cheap. I go back to Cleveland, and the fruits and vegetables are really expensive, but I can buy a box of macaroni and cheese for like 25 cents. So it's actually cheaper in the short term in Cleveland to buy the foods that lead to obesity. Whereas in California and Silicon Valley, it's actually cheaper to be healthy. So again, that's the underlying causes, right? underlying drivers of obesity. So the more there's weight loss programs and the more successful they are, the more we don't actually address these systemic problems. So again, this is the causal. This is also called a causal loop diagram because it shows you here's some causes that drive results, and here's how it affects it. How are you feeling about this? This makes sense?
Yeah, and the example that you gave, we call them food deserts,
Mm-hmm.
um, where there's not enough to get the food. But I'm just seeing like oh my God, Brian, like this approach. If we do this for our community, the things that they're doing to succeed in business, if we take this approach and get it into our grassroots community organizations that are out there trying to make a difference, we could change so many lives and have so much success that you just made me think for the first time about trying to create some more programming in the States.
Right. Well, and the cool thing, you can do it everywhere, right? You can do it where you're at.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you do it where you're at, because no one's actually using it, you're gonna shine and be an all-star,
yeah.
right? Because no one's doing it. No one's even heard of this stuff. So again, here's what I found for myself in losing weight. I find that when I'm stressed out, so I have some stress, and what happens with the stress is when I feel it and I don't control it well, it causes me to miss out on sleep. So I don't get rested. So there's a positive relationship here, right? So let me find a good arrow. And I got an arrow from the stress to missing out on sleep, right? And I'm going to throw in, whoops, let's not do that part. I'm going to throw in another text box here. I'm going to put a plus here because it's a positive relationship, meaning that stress causes me to miss out on sleep. And when I miss out on sleep, what tends to happen is I don't have the willpower to stick to my diet. So nutrition, diet, waivers, right? And it's a positive relationship here. Like the more sleep I lack, the worse my diet is, right? That's when I'm too tired to cook and going to fat burgers around the corner sounds like a really good idea, right? And what I found is that my nutrition waivers, what tends to happen with me is my exercise decreases. Right. And again, there's another kind of positive relationship where the more my diet goes, the more I just don't feel I'm too tired. I don't feel like exercising. And then, whoops, what happens with that is the more my exercise goes and my more my diet goes, I find is that now the weight loss stalls. right? Because again, I'm not exercising, I'm not eating right. So of course I'm not gonna lose weight anymore. Right? And funny enough, kind of rounding this whole thing out, when my weight loss stalls, what tends to happen is I get more stressed because I'm not reaching my goal. So now what you got it is this vicious circle, right? And it reinforces itself. And so part of the analysis you have to do is to map out, hey, here's this circle. How do I break this cycle? Because if I let this keep happening, we'll just keep gaining weight. So how do I break the cycle? And what tends to happen sometimes is if I can brainstorm away, again, this is more qualitative analysis. If I can brainstorm away to make to get out of this cycle, to pick one of these items that I have the biggest chance of affecting, and then pull it out so I can break the cycle, then I can get back on track as far as reaching my key result. So this is the job um, of an analyst. But again, in business, lots of times the analyst goes by a different title. So my title was like, I don't know, a strategic consultant, and the analyst, the strategic consultant, whatever the title is, figures out how to break this cycle. But the first part of it, the biggest part, is to define that this cycle exists. Most people don't take the time to actually figure out that this cycle exists to begin with. And if you don't diagram it out, make sure everybody can see it, it's harder to get people to change their behavior to do something different so that you can actually affect change and reach your key result. How are you feeling about this?
It, I feel like this is a key component to success in whatever you're trying to do. Identifying the cause and effect of the issues in a way that is like writing the vision, making it plain so everybody can see and
Right.
understand.
Yeah, and again, just one of the key things to take away, especially as it relates to OKRs, is I need to do this analysis, which it takes some time. It took us probably about a good 10 minutes to kind of go through, draw this diagram, reason everything out, really examine what happens with my weight loss journey. Um, but the reason I need to draw it out and be able to show other people is because we need to agree and align on what the root causes are and what's going to have the biggest effect so that we can align on our behavior. If you think that the biggest problem and the way to affect change is just for to get more sleep, then you might just say, hey, just get more sleep. It's pretty easy. Maybe you're a great sleeper. So you just, hey, for you it's just like setting aside the time, and if you get the time to do it, you can just sleep more. But that may not work for the other person, right? What if the other person has trouble going to sleep? Then what you're doing as far as a solution, just, hey, you know what? I'm gonna make time for you to go to sleep. But if they can't even fall asleep on their own, unaided, it's not really gonna help them. And this is what happens in lots of organizations, right? And again, this is where we talked about going and doing the analysis piece, doing a diagram like this. a causal loop diagram, it helps you have a discussion about your assumptions. When you suggest a solution of, hey, just get more sleep, right? The underlying assumption with that is that you can just get more sleep easily. But now that we're having the discussion, now I can actually give you some real information about the assumptions that you're using and say, hey, one thing we need to actually, use and consider is it's difficult to go to sleep unaided, right? And some people will think, hey, you know what? Maybe you just get, take a sip of wine, sip of brandy at night, and it's like, oh, you know what? Alcohol that makes you gain weight. Now your nutrition goes, right? And as you talk about different things, talk about different remedies to make things better, if you have this causal relationship diagram, you could actually go in and look at, well, how will that affect the rest of the picture, right? If I inject alcohol may actually help to get people to sleep, right? And it sounds good initially. So what we'll do here is we'll actually throw in um, alcohol, and it may have a positive effect on going to sleep. So it sounds good initially, but then unless you have a diagram like this where you can really examine things, you can't really see or explain to other people that it's going to have a negative effect on your nutrition. And once you see that it has a negative effect here, you got to weigh, is this the right solution? What Normally what I'll do in order to make the decision of if this is a good solution, if it has a great effect, what I'll do is I'll put a number on a scale of 1 to 10 by the relationship, by the plus or the negative signs, right? So if I had to rate, well, for me, what effect does alcohol have on helping me go to sleep? And it helps a little bit. Say maybe it's a 3, right? Then what I'll do is I'll say, all right, let's look at the negative effect that it has on my nutrition and diet. And for me, I drink alcohol. I want to eat so much when I drink alcohol. Right. So not only does the alcohol itself have a negative effect on my diet because it's empty calories, but it makes me hungrier. So the effect that it has on my hunger, on nutrition, is like a 7. And when you can actually lay it out like this for people to see and run simulations of different scenarios of different types of solutions, it'll help you make decisions on what solutions are actually good, and it'll help you come to alignment on it.
To a what? It can come to a what? Alignment.
Right. Because often, and people have solutions that won't work for you, but they're convinced it's the right solution because they really haven't thought about all the effects of it. And they'll be upset that you didn't take their solution. It becomes a relationship issue between you two. But when alcohol may not mess up your diet, it may not make you hungry. So you come up with the solution of drinking alcohol to help you go to sleep, and you're like, why won't you just take this solution? It's so obvious, right? Why don't you just listen? But you don't see that it has a negative effect on nutrition, and you don't see how big it is. And it's why you have to make things visual to give people the data, because they can't process it on their own without having data like this to back it up. This makes sense?
Absolutely.
So again, a big part of the OKR process, what people do is they develop these causal loop diagrams to help explain, here's why we didn't reach our key result, or we're not on track for reaching our objective. And then we can analyze and see, well, here's the things that we can do to make things better. Now, the cool thing is that we've gone through, just in this session, how to develop the causal loop diagram. And really, you don't need to go to school, for 4 years to really master this sort of analytical thinking. You just need practice. If you can just do this in your personal life, like I just did here. I took a personal problem, like the weight loss piece of it, and diagrammed it out. And the more you do it, the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. So that's all it takes for people to do. People don't do this extra step. They don't do it, and like you were talking about community organizing, and they don't do it in their businesses. And so, without doing this type of analysis, it's really hard for you to even focus on what the solution should be. But then two, if you, most big problems, they actually require collaboration with other people, and you can't get other people to collaborate and get aligned until they can see this data. And that's why it's so important. How you feeling about this so far?
Well, I'm feeling like because you had mentioned yesterday the importance of helping the entire organization get aligned from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm seeing it just amazes me these tools that you have access to help you. Because normally when people say this is what we need to do, they just say we need to do it. They don't actually give you the methodology to reach what they say. But it's like everything that you've been talking about, and everything, it's all coming together. And you have these tools and these methodologies to scientifically get to these things that you're saying we need to get to. And so that it's this is a new experience for me. To hear someone say this is what we want to achieve, but then actually have the step-by-step formulaic process in order to get there, man. This is you blow my mind every meeting, every class, man.
Well, again, this is one of those things where I work with a lot of businesses, and what we find is that, and I think I've said this before, people are so busy doing activities that they don't take the time to do this type of analysis. So then they'll pick activities which are things that they're used to, but they may not be the activities that are actually effective. And this helps you figure out what's effective, right? So, again, I brought this topic and we did this. We were discussing the horizontal analysis and determining what are the other things we need to do to make things better, right? And so I got to this loop, and we were talking about the making sure that you didn't gain weight, and how do we actually do that? And I talked about, hey, one of the biggest things I found out, biggest impacts, is the sleep and everything. And so we explore using alcohol to get more sleep, and we found out that, hey, that overall that has a negative effect. And what I found, and it's a big one. Again, I'm just doing this for me. I'm using this as an example. When I did my root cause analysis, I find that, again, stress causes me to miss out on sleep. And when I examine, well, why am I stressed? And I figured out that I tend to do too much. I have a certain capacity, a certain amount of hours that are available to do things. And I have an absolutely horrible habit of going over my capacity. And when I do too much and I go over my capacity, what I find is that that is what causes me stress. And then the stress is what causes me to miss out on sleep. And that's what starts the cycle. So then I found out, well, all I have to do is make sure that I cut back on the number of items that I'm actually working on, that I do less. I do less, I'm less stressed, I get more sleep, I can have the willpower to concentrate on my diet, I keep the exercise intact, that goes to weight loss and everything is stable. And as soon as I actually start doing weight too much, I go over my limit, right? Over my capacity. That's when I get the stress and it goes into that negative reinforcement cycle. And these are the things you want to, in your organizations, really examine, right? Normally, how I'll examine it is the same way I put numbers on here. I'll put numbers on every single item in here to say, here's the strength relative to each other that it causes. And then I normally try to figure out, well, the items with the biggest causal effect, let me decrease that. Let me do something to decrease that. And that becomes part of my solution, right? So now I know, again, horizontal analysis, again, you're asking the question, is there anything else you need to do in order to make sure you accomplish your objective? And now I found out I need to make sure that I'm not doing too much. I need to constantly monitor what my capacity is for actually doing activities and to stay within my capacity. So I'm going to add another key result to stay within my capacity. How are you feeling about this so far? Just makes sense?
Yeah, so at what point do we do the causal loop diagram? Is that part of our horizontal analysis? Or is
Part of
it?
the It's part of the horizontal analysis, and I do this as soon as I develop, here's what my key results are. I need to check to make sure that I haven't missed anything. So before I actually say I'm done and this is it, I do the horizontal analysis to make sure I haven't left anything out. It's a check, right? And the same way when I leave the house, I don't just leave the house and assume the door is locked. I do a check and I'll go to the door and try it to make sure it doesn't open to verify that I did lock it. Likewise, when you finish doing and creating your OKRs, you shouldn't just assume that your OKRs are perfect. You do the horizontal analysis to check to make sure you haven't missed anything. And as part of the horizontal analysis, I'll introduce this causal loop tool to diagram out, hey, if I missed anything, right? I especially do this if I'm not meeting the results. If I'm not meeting the results, then likely there's something that you're missing. There's some other factor that's involved, and that's why you're not getting the results, and you have to figure out what that factor is. So doing this causal loop diagram will actually help you figure out what is missing. Extremely powerful tool, right? Now, one more note I want to put, because I know we're pushing it on time. One more note I'm gonna throw out. We talked about capacity, and I had this personal capacity, but what I also want to consider is the capacity for my quarter. So I have a key result I'm trying to reach, and I found that key result by looking at the objective and saying, what piece of this can I finish in the quarter? I do horizontal analysis, and I find out, hey, there's probably something else I'm missing. Then I need to do analysis to say the thing I'm missing, can I do what I previously had as a KR and this piece that's missing? Can I do that in the same quarter? Right? Do I have enough capacity to handle both? Or do I stick with my current KR, key result, and then I have to create possibly a future key result for that part that's missing? And you got to be serious and really look at if you really have the capacity to handle it. Because if you put too much, too many items, and it's not feasible for you to accomplish both in the same quarter, then the whole movement gets derailed. There's nothing that breeds failure like failure. If you set yourself up and give yourself some early losses, you get discouraged, you don't think that this whole thing works. So you want to actually do something that's really achievable. So you have to look at, hey, do I have the capacity to handle everything that I need to do within this time frame? So the horizontal analysis basically pushes you into this capacity analysis, right? You have to actually think about, can I actually handle everything that needs to get done? All right, so let me pause. How are you feeling about everything we talked about with the causal loop diagram, doing the capacity analysis, and updating your key results, respectively?
I see this part as specifically how we can take precautionary measures to prevent our failure, um, in addition to doing this if we fail.
Right.
Because we can go through this to present ourselves for failing in the first place, to see the potentials that could cause us not to succeed.
Yeah. And again, it's powerful, right?
Extremely.
The the thing that I want to leave everybody with as we round up this episode is that in the past, and I speak to a lot of business owners, a lot of people in organizations, and they think the paradigm they're in, they think that the greatest determinant of whether or not they succeed is really how much activity they do. And so they're constantly trying to figure out how they can increase the amount of activity. And what we found out is that assumption is totally incorrect. The greatest determinant of your success is really if you're doing the right activities. So people that are in the leadership positions, they should do less operational activities and more of this OKR type analysis to figure out if they're actually going to be effective doing the right activities. And this is a big paradigm switch, right? Because our whole society is based upon doing more. And I'm here to say, nope, you want to do more analysis, but as far as activities, you want to do less activities so that you have more time to do this analysis. And you can put the activities that are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, put those to the forefront. What do you think?
I think I'm going to be a good consultant, man. I always would hear about people being consultants, and it was like a mysterious thing, you know. And I, you know, when I heard it was the more I learned about it, I always wished that one day I would be able to be some type of consultant. You know, I've been more just of a teacher, but this is a lot of teaching as well. But you know, I feel like I am going to be able to be a very good consultant, and we're recording all of this, so people are going to be there. People are going to be experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing, man. And so the ripple effect that we're creating here at this epicenter of the ripple is just, it's like divine, man. It's like this is like divine intervention for the world. You know, this is crazy, man. And you're just giving this for free. You're just giving this for free so you can uplift your people, man. Like you're gonna have to get like a Nobel Prize or something eventually, man, or whatever. And you think somebody's gonna have to recognize you, man. This is crazy.
Again, it's just sharing kind of what's normal practice here in Silicon Valley, just sharing it out so that we can use it in our community. Right?
Brian, this is heavy, man. This is heavy.
Hey, well, with that, I'll leave you with the last word. We'll wrap up this episode, and we'll explore kind of the next steps in capacity analysis and setting up kind of a roadmap. Because remember, we talked about KRs being milestones, so it makes like a natural roadmap. So we'll explore that in the next episode. Until then, thanks everybody.